All yours, David. How we roll.
You don't want
it. Well, thank you for allowing us to do that. Like I said, it's been it's a superstition at this point, I think, that we have to do the chair dancing. So welcome, everyone. Happy New Year to episode number 20. We have a very special guest with us, but before we introduce him, allow us to introduce ourselves first. My name is Caroline Berglund, and I am the principal of an organization by the name of Talk Talk, based in the beautiful yet cold city of Calgary, Alberta. And Eva?
I am Eva van Krugel. I am in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. It's the first time in a lot of episodes I haven't said the Pacific Northwest, but I just did.
But wow, changing it up.
I know, shaking it up.
So Pithy Musings is a podcast on topics that are tough, timely, and sometimes taboo. We're celebrating our second year anniversary with this episode, actually. So yay, us. We're on it. And I know that sounds big, but we do mean this. We're on a mission to help humanity be better. So this podcast isn't just about the workplace. It's looking at the workplace, but also our personal lives in a very holistic human way. So if you're a leader, an entrepreneur, or in a position to influence culture in an organization of any size, you're in the right place. This is the stuff we cover. So don't forget to subscribe to Pithy Musings on YouTube or follow us on Spotify. So we're super grateful that you are here. Obviously, we continue to get feedback. Our last episode 19 was part 2 on grief, which I actually think was really timely given that it was in the holiday season. And I really do believe that that episode helped a lot of people based on the feedback that we've received. But I think to kick off 2023 with, and I won't steal Eva's thunder, with a human that is known as the Ikigai guy is a perfect way to kickstart 2023. So Eva, over to you.
Well, we are humbled and honored to have David Marlow, the Ikigai guy, with us today. And we're recording live, so this is going to be an unedited conversation. We had a little chat prior. We said, we're not too sure where it's going to go, but we know we're going to talk about Ikigai, and we're going to get to know David, and we're going to get to learn with David. And we'll talk more about what Ikigai is and why it matters. David Marlow calls himself a modern elder and the Ikigai guy, and for good reason. He has coached, mentored, collaborated with hundreds, probably more than hundreds, David, at this point, in executive leadership and design thinking, following a 30-year career as a senior leader and executive in Fortune 500 companies, also known as a big deal. He is a globally sought-after keynote speaker, a published author, a recognized leader in Lean Six Sigma. He's also a former sergeant from the U.S. Marine Corps. I'm reminded I have to sit up straight and watch my posture. Need to fold my clothes. And David retired early from corporate life. I think some can really relate to that. Lots are thinking about what matters and why. David did that, retired from that corporate life, following what he always wanted to do. So he founded Vluru, which means versatile guru, to help people live into their purpose, companies, and their products and people. I'm almost done. David has coined so many terms. One of our favorites is humans being humane to other human beings. Love that. David has over 40,000 followers on LinkedIn. We both, Caroline and I, have seen every day the diligent, beautiful, poetic, insightful posts, as well as a fabulous blog, Your Daily Ikigai on Substack. Recommend following that. David, welcome.
Welcome.
Didn't we
thank you.
say? What didn't we say?
Oh no, I think you covered everything. Thank you so much. It's very great. I should have you write that for me. I should save that.
Well, we'll cut and paste and send you an email. What I didn't add is doting father, grandfather, loving husband, and we see that come through in your LinkedIn post, which is gorgeous.
Oh, thanks. And those are the more important ones too. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah.
So I think a natural place to start, David, is to start with not even the definition of Ikigai, but more, how did you find yourself in this space of studying it, living it, teaching it, all of that?
Yeah, I was actually studying it before I even knew what it was. But about, I'm going to say 7 now, maybe 8 years ago, I could see that my corporate career wasn't going to end the way I had originally planned. I had started a transformation effort at a storied 150-year-old, traditional company, and we were like flipping everything on its head, and that was very exciting. And I could see they were starting to get tired of that, and it was waning. And so I got on LinkedIn just because the last thing you want to do is get on LinkedIn when you need a job, right? And I was just writing, sharing like I do now, but I didn't have any any plan, or was no development or anything, no products. It was just, I was writing what I was thinking about and feeling about, and if people got it, that was great. And so because I was doing that, I asked some people, if I were to put a brand to this, because this is really just me, how would you define that? And one friend of mine said, I don't know about your brand, but you ought to look into Ikigai. And I'm like, well, what's that? And he's like, oh, I'll just look into it. And what I discovered was everything that I had, been energized by and into for years and years and years. And it put together my own journey and made it clear to me what I had been doing for 20 some years before that. And so that's how I got started on Ikigai. And in fact, that particular individual is the one that gave me the moniker of the Ikigai guy. And I was like, oh, I kind of like that. And it has stuck.
Well, people certainly remember it. I might be speaking to, it could be a client, a colleague, and they'll say, you seem to be in conversation a lot with a group of folks, like David Marlow, or I'll say, oh, like David Marlow, and they'll go, oh, the Ikigai guy. So people are recalling without prompting the Ikigai guy. So it's sticking.
Well, even that Ikigai guy has showed up in our episodes a few times.
Yeah. It's wonderful. But Ikigai, a part of me, I'm wondering if people are really clear on it. When you Google Ikigai, there are pages and pages and pages and pages of information, date back to the Heian era, and so many versions. How do you describe Ikigai?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because you're right. If you Google it, you're going to get, more times than not, the 4-circle Venn diagram, which is a very nice diagnostic tool, but it's very career focused. The way I teach and the way I define Ikigai is about experiencing your essence and your purpose in harmony with whatever you're doing. So that includes your career, obviously, but it's funny that before we got started, we were talking about how obvious it is a kid's personality when they're little, their essence is there. And that is so true. That is who we are. And that doesn't change. What happens is the world kind of happens, and it gets a little buried, and disappointments happen, and well-meaning parents and friends and family and that essence just gets buried. And the idea of Ikigai is uncovering that essence and then living into it and your purpose in harmony with whatever you're doing. And I'm very careful to use the word harmony as opposed to balance. Balance implies some equal thing. And in our lives, there are different times where different aspects of our lives are maybe more important or more urgent or require more time than others. And so that's my definition. I was really excited, I think 2 weeks ago, Ken Mogi, who created the 5 pillars of Ikigai, he retweeted my definition. So I feel pretty good about my definition if Ken Mogi thinks it's valid.
Yeah. But it's a big societal question, just to go back to what you're talking about, is you know, how this changes for us out of childhood. Like, why does that happen? Like, I think about my own journey, right? Like, I oftentimes when we're in these episodes, I think about my own journey and go, well, you know, people were asking me, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? What are you going to take in school? And you feel pressured to adhere to some kind of societal norm as to really unearthing what should I be in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's even just the well-meaning question of what do you want to be when you grow up, right? It implies that you will be a job, a career, that's your identity, as opposed to a way that you will express your ikigai. I've had the rather, I'll say, unusual career of having been a disc jockey and a radio and TV newsman, a sergeant in the Marine Corps, as you mentioned, an engineer in two different disciplines, in IT and in RF, and then into an executive role in various Fortune 500 companies, as well as I like to reference coaching my daughter's 8th grade basketball team to national championships and finishing 6th there. And in every one of those very different careers or leadership roles, I was able to live out my ikigai, and I can see my ikigai in play. And that's what I encourage people to think about. It's not so much the manifestation of it or the way people see it. It's that you at your deepest essence, and there are lots and lots of ways that can come about in your life. You were talking about you know, my role as a father and a husband and a grandfather. In each of those, I live out my ikigai and express that essence, you know, in that. And in fact, those are some of the most important roles I have, obviously, right? I mean, I don't think I was at GE for 10 years, and I don't think anybody sits around and goes, oh, do you remember the days when Dave was here? And like, but my kids do, and my grandkids do. And so
when you say living out your ikigai and being able to express your core essence, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, so I like to encourage people to develop an ikigai verse. Just gives you a sense for what your purpose is, so that you can share it, so you can look for those opportunities. So my ikigai verse is to encourage, empower, and enable people to be all they were meant to be. Now, when I think about that, and when I have that, I can apply that to coaching. I can apply that to Lean Six Sigma, continuous improvement. I can apply that to companies and processes and products, because I'm trying to provide them with the means to get them to see what they can do and be the best that they can be. So that's it. When you have that understanding, then you can start to look for ways that you can apply that and live that out.
Almost reminds me of like a unique value proposition, the ikigai verse, but a little bit bigger. So if those that are listening to this today, like, how would you even go about creating a verse for yourself?
Oh, that's wonderful that you ask. I have a class actually that I teach.
Okay.
And it's really about finding those things that have spoken to you. I mean, what I give, and what I do to teach, is encourage people to do what I call the verbs, values, and verse. So you find your verbs. What are the things that just really get you excited? Like, I love to encourage people. If I could make a living just encouraging people, that's what I'd be doing all the time. And I mean, I'm trying to do that anyway, and to various degrees of success in terms of the making living part. But I mean, that's like, I love to encourage. I love the process of teaching and enabling people to do something on their own. So helping them have the tools themselves, and empowering kind of links to that. So it's a process of finding those verbs that speak to you, and then who are the people that you're trying to reach, and then what are your values? You know, what are the things that really matter to you, and then expressing that. And the nice thing about the Ikigai verse is it's something you can share with someone else, and they can help you. So take when I took early retirement. I was initially thinking about doing coaching, and I said, yeah, I think I may just do some coaching. Coaching, you know how many life coaches there are? If you Google life coaches, there's like 17 million, billion, zillion life coaches. Okay. then I would share people my verse, and they go, you know what? You'd be perfect as a coach. You'd be perfect because that's what coaches do. And it gave them a different sense and coming from a different place, as opposed to what, what we tend to do as humans. And it's just quickly answer and say, no, that won't work. So it gives you a working model, almost like you said, a value proposition, but it helps others then, team with you and support you and work with you to help you live out your Ikigai. It's a very empowering tool, I think, and as well as helping you kind of have a definable purpose.
Mm-hmm. And you can apply, your work supports individuals, organizations, as well as products. You can apply purpose to each of those. Ikigai, purpose, same. So how do you, can you share more about why it might matter in each case?
Sure. I'll give you a quick example from some of the work I was doing at the end of my time at Northwestern Mutual. So Northwestern Mutual is a great company. They provide life insurance, which, at their essence and their purpose is about providing that financial security for people, right? Families in time of need, they've lost a loved one, that kind of thing. And so obviously a very heartfelt purpose. And we were working with teams in the processing area. So called death claims, because that's what it is. It's a policy claim and death. And so we had a lot of fun with all of our project names, death claims this, death claims that. But it's a very important role, and obviously connecting with people at a tough time in their lives. And so we were working in there to speed up the claims process, to get that through and get that money to those people because they need it and so forth. Well, we did, I led a design effort then where we went out and interviewed people and really got close to the experience, as opposed to just working on processes and that kind of thing. And oh my goodness, what we found, like one guy, and we found this to be true in others, but he had a policy with, I'll just say, another life insurance company that we didn't see as good as us. They're the bad guys in the business, all right? And we're the good guys. And this guy's experience, he had a policy, his father had a policy from both companies, and his experience with the bad guys was good and with us was terrible, because we were trying so hard to get the money to him that we were putting burdens on him. We were putting pressure on him. We were making his experience difficult. And all the while we're thinking, well, we're doing a great job. We cut 15 days off the time it takes for them to get their money and so forth. And where that's a mismatch is the purpose of that death claims group, they thought, was to get the claim to them quickly. And it's not. It's to align more with the company purpose, which is to be there for people when they need us and to help them deal with this loss. And so that's where having that company purpose aligned with the team's purpose makes all the difference. We were working very hard, very diligently with all the, for all the right reasons, and doing the worst thing we could possibly do for people in their experience. And it was a smack in the face to us, especially, like I said, we're the good guys. And we're in this scenario, we're the bad guys. And so that's an example, though, of where having that alignment from the top down and understanding, why does this team exist and how does this connect to the greater purpose? Then planning, how can we do this better, as opposed to just how can we do it better, faster, and so forth. So that's one way.
That's hard work, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like take a step back and go, wait, we're not aligned, right? So did you go back and realign the team's purpose, or how did that work?
Yes, we did. I give a lot of credit to the executive team and things. When I say I actually gave them that message, they were pretty open about it. I mean, they weren't happy, just like I wasn't happy when I heard it. At the same time, we were happy to have learned of that and to make that pivot. And that's the power too of going beyond. That's one reason I named the company Vluru. I don't think Six Sigma and Lean is the only way. I don't think design thinking is the only way. I think all of those work in concert and help. right? If you had applied just design thinking to that, we might have gotten that insight, but then how do you make the changes necessary to make it a reality? If all you do is speed things up or get rid of waste and do all the good things that Lean and Six Sigma do, but don't understand the reason why you're doing it, then again, you're making things better, but not for the reason you want. So to me, that's the importance of applying whatever really works and whatever is necessary in solving the problem or making things better.
I also find we have a tendency to confuse vision, mission, purpose. Some are doing all three, and then it can get really confusing inside an organization or for a team. What is your view on a delineation or an integration or another option of those elements?
Yeah, it's a little like we had a discussion on LinkedIn this past week about goals, goals and purpose and outcomes and all of that. It's you really got to understand the big picture of why you're here, and then think about what's going to get us there. You have to make a guess, right? I mean, at the same time, if you're too locked into what's going to get you there, you don't take new information like what we learned with our design thinking project and incorporate it. And that's where the difference comes in. There's tactical elements. Obviously, you have to get down to various things. I use my running as an example. I have an outcome every year. Well, my outcome is I want to be healthy, and I know that if I run regularly, I stay leaner, I stay fit, I stay married, as my wife would say. She's very good about, hey, don't you think you need to go for a run today?
Houses.
And so there's an outcome there, that I want. If I started with the idea of, I want to achieve this goal of running, then the past several years that I've had would have been a disaster, because I got COVID several years ago and spent 3 or 4 months trying to just breathe, let alone try and run and breathe. But I have a way of getting to my goal, my outcome, by running 1,000 miles. I like to set that out there. It's not a hard and fast goal. I'm not going to run on days when I've got an injury or things like that. Not that kind of goal. And it's more to prompt me to keep going and to get out there. Like I didn't run yesterday. I did some other stuff. So today I'm going to run, and I'm definitely going to run, because if I don't, every day that I don't run is 2.74 miles behind hitting 1,000 miles. At the same time, I've had, as I said, all kinds of I had an injury, and I had some other things that have thrown a wrench in my ability to deliver that. And so I just take those steps back and remember, what are you trying to do? Well, you're trying to stay healthy. And if I was worried about the goal, there's no way I could make the goal. And so I just quit running and or switch to a different goal. So it's really about setting those things that serve you and keep you moving toward your ultimate vision. And then those tactical pieces are flexible enough to pivot with the learning and with maybe the new target that you're going to have. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally. It's a great example too of running. I wanted to just shift a little bit, because I do follow you on LinkedIn, and I do also participate in your daily Ikigai newsletter.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
Yeah. And I was deeply moved by a post you had on LinkedIn around Mihei, and the concept of flow. So for those that don't know who that person is, it's a Hungarian-American psychologist, does a wonderful TED Talk back in the day on flow. But would love to get your perspective in terms of, how does the concept of flow and Ikigai come together, or do they?
Oh, they're very much aligned. When you are in an Ikigai space, right? You have a greater chance of flow. And yeah, I am a huge fan, and that was a personal tribute that I wrote for him, and was shocked that it's one of the biggest posts I've ever had, like millions of views on that. And I still can't pronounce his name properly. I have like this Irish dyslexic mouth or something that can't say certain names.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I looked it up in
Mihai.
advance.
I know what you
Mihai,
mean.
and then Csikszentmihalyi.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly what I would have said if I had said that. Yeah, I think the nice thing about flow and its connection to Ikigai is and Eva, you asked earlier about, all parts of your life. It's like looking for those opportunities to do everything, whatever that is. I mean, maybe it's cleaning the house, which I personally hate, and finding a flow element to that, and establishing those opportunities in your life to have more flow than less flow. Obviously, nothing's ever 100%. People, say, "Well, how am I ever going to find a career that's 100% my Ikigai?" It's like, well, you probably won't, because just like I have to take out the trash or, clean or do my taxes, there are things in life that aren't your Ikigai flow state. But the idea is to find and create that harmony where you're doing more and more of that, or you're approaching it in such a way. So I'll go with taxes. Taxes used to be just this horrific thing for us, and we don't really have that much. It's not like I've got complicated investments or this or that. I had some stock options one time that was like the most complicated thing I think I've ever had. But I just would stress over it because I'm a recovering perfectionist, and just filling things out like that bothers me. I hired an accountant. I mean, that's how I have created flow in that. For me, is I just hire an accountant. They're not that expensive for the kind of stuff that I want, and it has provided me so much relief and so much ease in my life, and more time for things where I am in a greater state of flow. And so that's the key thing more than anything, is if you can find those opportunities to either change it or offload it, or change your perception of it too, and how you feel about it. Why are you doing that?
You have me thinking about cleaning the house and how I try to enter flow and it's happening, and I'm like, working the right arm, the left arm.
Wax on, wax on.
That's right. I'm moving my body, or I'm nurturing my temple. I love that you commented on that. It's almost this belief or this idea that can I live a life and work a career that is 100% in alignment all the time?
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. I just don't think that it's completely realistic. So what can you accept? I'm going to use some positive intelligence language. What can you accept and go forth and prosper? Or what can you change and convert to an alternative possibility? So
yeah, it's like marriage, right? I mean, I feel like I have a very happy marriage. I wouldn't say that every single solitary moment, kind of like when my wife says, "Don't you need to go run?" Right? I mean, that's her setting up a flow state so that I get out the door and calm my nerves.
yes.
Yeah, it would be like expecting that to be perfect all the time, but it is, though, more. I mean, I'd say that the majority of people experience very little Ikigai in their life, very little flow, and it's about getting more and more of that. And I liked your acceptance comment too, because there are some things we have to accept, and there are some moments where that's really living into your Ikigai is taking that moment of acceptance. I do use running analogies a lot just because it works for me, and hopefully it does for others. But you both mentioned you're in the cold, and we're cold up here. And I was running the other day, and man, the wind just like picked up and hit me. And when I tighten up and rebel against that, I feel really cold. When I just let it go and accept that that's, it's December or January in Wisconsin, and that's what's going to happen, and you're going to have to be okay with that. It becomes kind of a thing. It's like, oh, okay, I'm just out in the cold and I'm acknowledging it, and I don't feel as cold, and I enjoy my run more, and I'm not changing the cold. I'm certainly not changing the weather. If I had that kind of power, we'd probably have a different discussion, but I'm accepting that. And so that's an element of this too, those things that you can't change, and parts of your life that you can't. Not everything's like the taxes. You can't just hire an accountant, but when you can, you should.
Full agreement, but that's a bias.
Yeah.
I'm curious around your systems or ideas, both when it comes to alignment or misalignment of Ikigai. So whether it's individual or in an organization, we have I believe we need our mechanisms that help us live in alignment or make sure we're in alignment with that Ikigai. You've, say, picked a word of the year for 2023. Caroline, I think you found that post and it said the word abound. And my hunch is that is a practice to be in alignment. Would just love to hear more about a philosophy of alignment and any ideas that you have there.
Yeah. So because I haven't lived that year out, I'll give the example of last year was create. I just really sensed a need to embrace the idea of creating, creative, create. And it was in really thinking about that and looking for opportunities to integrate that into day-to-day life that I started the daily Ikigai newsletter. I had not pondered doing that or looked into it, and a friend of mine started a Substack, and I was like, wow, I wonder if that's like an avenue I could create. And I just started on that. And if I can say something that sounds immodest, it's not meant to, it's just to reinforce the point, but it is one of the fastest growing Substack newsletters they've ever had. It's the #1 search response for Ikigai now, and there's many Ikigai, thank you, on Substack, and the subscriber rate grows every day. I mean, it's amazing to me the amount of people that are being served by that, because I took some time and thought, well, if you're going to be creative, what are you creating and what's an opportunity? And that opportunity came to me and was like, oh, well, let's do that. And I had no idea how I would use it. I still haven't, I don't think fully gleaned everything from it that can be done. There's some opportunities I think that are there. And I keep thinking about what's a create opportunity here. But that's really how you would use that and look for those opportunities in the course of the year, not to the exclusion of everything else either. It's just it's a focus. That's why I call it a focus word, as opposed to my worthy as a focus word of the year, to think about those opportunities and incorporate them into your life.
So that's a practice that you've had every year then, David, is creating a word of the year, and then actually, that creates the North Star? No,
that's only a few years, and I give Eva credit for that. She introduced me to that 3 years ago now, I think. And I thought, oh, that's a great idea, because it does work so well with, Ikigai, but I had never heard of it or thought about it in that way before. So no, I think it's a perfect integration, but no, it's a new thing. It's one of the Vluru things now, right? You add it to your toolkit.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I know, Caroline and I both each had a word of the year, and I think I heard about it from it was Lori Hillis who heard about it from Karen Walrond, had done a body of work on it, and it's a wonderful alignment practice, especially when you have an accountability buddy. So I have an accountability buddy that every 3 weeks we're literally asking each other, hey, so how did it go living into that word? What are you learning about yourself? What are your wins? What are you curious about and future intentions into the next few weeks? And it is fascinating to look at a journal over a year and suddenly finding the next word for the next year is this flow state. It's so much easier. It just comes forth. So I personally have found it to be an incredibly wonderful alignment practice. But what about in an organization? I've seen horrendous things happen in corporate cultures where purpose is concerned. I've seen vision, mission, purpose, and each of them done. Now we're talking about purpose here. So purpose being done without the voices of the people who make it possible, for example. So I've seen some devastating practices, and how can you live into your Ikigai if people don't feel connected into it? So would love to hear it could be do's, don'ts, or ideas to just really help anchor Ikigai purpose organizationally.
Sure. Well, first of all, you touched on it with the what not to do, right? The top down. It's very similar, I'll say, to a lean implementation. When you're doing lean, you want the people doing the work to be the driver, to be the people that are understanding it, the people that are influencing the leadership, not the leadership down, right? It's the work up. And it's very similar when you would be, linking to purpose. And the loss that you have is very similar to what we talked about earlier, where you've got death claims that's quickly getting that stuff out. I can't even tell you the number of times that the leadership had no idea what life was like for the clients or for the people doing, the day-to-day work. The leadership was too busy doing what I call strategery, right? They were making the strategy. They were having their, PowerPoints and their decks and their offsites and all that. And they had no idea. One quick example I'll give you was executive leader who was, I give him a lot of credit. He was willing to get on the phones and do some call center work with some of the people dealing with application issues and whatnot. And I don't remember the exact problem, but he was on the phone when this woman was working with a client, and she just could not get this done because the software wouldn't let her solve the problem. And he got off the phone and he called me. He goes, I had no idea this was even an issue. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I made a call. He made a call. And in 20 minutes, the software team was already working on correcting that. They didn't have any idea. Well, it's like, well, no kidding, because this guy had not left his office in 20 years. Now, again, I give him a lot of credit. He changed that behavior. And as a result of that, he learned to connect with people and made huge difference in that team. That's the same thing when it comes to mission vision. Well, maybe that's what we ought to call it, mission vision, vision, purpose. None of that means anything if it's the flavor of the week, if it's the same way we've always done stuff, if it isn't really involving everybody and understanding what that means and how to translate that. I had a team that was they were like password security and access to everything. I mean, the whole company. And they had no idea what their value to it was Northwestern Mutual, what Northwestern Mutual was. And at one point, we had some VP that wanted access to something, and there was nothing in the process to keep them from having access to this. And as it turned out, they should not have had access to it, and it would have been a huge privacy breach and all kinds of things. And the team member came to me and said, I don't think this is right. And we looked into it, and sure enough, it wasn't right. And it wasn't anything that this executive was trying to do. They just thought that's what they're supposed to do. And it was this person's ownership of the issue that saved the company a potential, issue. And I said, you guys do that every day. This is we only have trust. We don't make products. We don't make cars. We don't, make anything. All we have is trust. The entire business is based on trust. And if we lose that trust, we're out of business. Yeah. And you guys are are like the gatekeepers to a big element of trust, because to get life insurance, you got to tell everybody everything, right? I mean, everything about you is in that system. And so that job of keeping access to the right people and ensuring it was, privacy was respected, all those things, like a huge accountability. And boy, I think people sat up straighter in their chairs after that, and felt better about their job. But that's the kind of thing. Connecting with people at every level like that is the key to making that work. Otherwise, again, it's just a flavor of the week kind of thing, and banners and Hawaiian shirt day. Right?
It's interesting, David, because I'm thinking about all of the organizations that work in that Six Sigma, continuous, lean, whatever. And I think you're onto something, because I don't think they spend any time in this arena, right? Like, they hire these fancy consultants at $400 an hour, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. They go down to the front line. They try to, fix whatever widget, make things happen faster. But there's no real connection to anything bigger than being more profitable or whatever. But there's no real conversation around the purpose of doing that. So I think this is really interesting, and I've never thought of it this way. I'm having an aha moment that's the missing link there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can sub-optimize almost anything, right? Early in our engagement, again at NM, I went to a team about a particular issue they were having, and they said, "Yeah, we're going to send this to this other team." That was their answer. That was their answer to get rid of the problems. Like, well, we don't move pain. We don't. That's one of my tenets, right? We don't move pain. So if it's causing you a pain, you don't solve it by moving it to somebody else. You have to actually solve it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of projects where somebody will sub-optimize or optimize their thing and sub-optimize the system. Yeah, you have to have that holistic look at everything, the people, process and whatnot. I'll give you an example. One of the early pilots that I worked on, I was still prototyping and validating the concept for people at NM, and one of the call center directors came to me and she said, "Oh, I want to be one of your early pilots." I said, "Okay, well, tell me what's your problem, or what do you want to solve?" She goes, "We have to reduce average handle time that people are on the phone, right? Handle time." And I said, "Really? How do you know that's your problem?" And she goes, "Well, we have to become more efficient." I said, "Oh, I got you covered." I have a red rotary phone that I kept on my desk, and I said, "I'll just write up some standard work for your people and have them answer the phone and hang up immediately. Now you've gone to 0 average handle time.
Yeah.
Have I solved your problem?"
No.
And after a few choice words, she said no. And I said, "Okay, so can we agree that's not your problem? Talk to me about what your problem is." And what we found was the average call time was 5 minutes. And the average number of times people had to call in to get a problem solved was 3. So their total contact time was 15. And I said, "Well, what if instead of reducing your average handle time, we doubled it, but actually solved their problem? Now we've got the efficiency you want, but we've also actually done what we need to do, which is help the customers." And so when you lead with efficiency, that's the kind of thing you get. When you lead with understanding the problem and reducing the waste, which was the number, times they called and not having the answer and things like that, reduce the waste and add value, then you get efficiency. When you start with efficiency, you get things like hanging up in 2 seconds, or as I use the water conserving toilets that use 33% less water but have to be flushed twice, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing you get when you focus on an efficient mindset. In fact, if people say Lean and Six Sigma is all about efficiency, it's actually not. Now, people do apply it, and Caroline, you're right. Companies do that. Consultants do that. That's not actually what they were designed to do. They were designed to eliminate waste and create value add. It's when you go for those, quick hit efficiency plays that you get those other results.
I'm really appreciating this definition of efficiency. It's really expanding my horizons there. What if an organization or a person, what if any one of us don't pursue our Ikigai, don't pursue getting clear on it? What's the risk of that?
So if you think about when you're living into your essence, when you're living into your purpose and it's in harmony, you're living an integrated self, right? And if you think about from an integrity, a personal integrity standpoint, not like telling the truth kind of, like an integrated integrity, if you're not living that way, you're disintegrating, and you risk living a disintegrated and continually disintegrating life. And I can look back over times of my life when I was stretching myself and spending the majority of my time at work and other things not integrated, not working in my Ikigai. And then I know, Eva, you know this, I had a son that had some serious health problems. I mean, like brain surgery, that kind of intensity. And then trying to be present for them and trying to give my all to a career and all these. When you're not in an integrated space, you're just disintegrating to try and cover all that kind of thing. And it's at those times actually when we're probably need to be the most integrated that we're disintegrating. So that's the risk you run of that, and living that the disintegrated life, not being present, not being yourself, not even being the real you. It's a big deal. I mean,
It is.
a big deal,
It's
right?
a big deal. And the word that's coming to my mind is, well, there's a couple words. One is happiness,
Mhm.
uniqueness.
Mhm.
You know, we're all kind of unique human beings having a unique human experience, and in uncovering or unveiling our ikigai, we find happiness. It's also that whole, I mean, Eva knows this, I use the word all the time, but my existential angst, right? Like, what are we here for, right?
Yeah.
So I like how you've talked about integration and disintegration, because I'm thinking about myself. Am I integrated? I don't know. Right. And that would be my hope for the folks that are listening and watching as well, is to start examining, doing that self-introspective work to go, where am I on that continuum?
Yeah, I love that you're doing that, because that's the beginning, right? That's how you have to at least acknowledge that that's necessary, that it's valuable. And I'll answer Ava's question again too by saying that each and every person is a unique, one of a kind expression that will never happen again. That's never happened before and will never happen again. And there's a reason you're here. And if you don't live out that, if you don't live into your ikigai, if you don't live out that expression, it's never going to happen. And so that's the urgency as well, right? That what
I think we need to
the reason you're
underpin
here.
that, David.
that?
We need to underpin that you were born for a reason.
Mhm.
Each one of us has been born for a reason, and it's important for us to take the time to figure out why that is, so that we can live that out. So few people do that, I don't think, David. I really don't think many people do that.
Yeah, and it's only you can do that, and it's not as difficult as, I know, like when I was young, I thought I have to find it. And it's like, you don't have to find it, you have to be it. It's you, right?
Yeah.
And it's living that out. It's not that, well, I say it's not that hard. It's the hardest thing in the world, and yet it's not that hard. But it is super important, because you are that expression. There's a reason you're here, or you wouldn't be here. And if you don't live it out and don't express that unique aspect of you, no one's ever going to have that. And the rest of us are going to miss out on that.
It's a little bit like when Timothy Clark joined us for an episode on psychological safety. And, we asked the big question of, how do you want to be remembered? And I won't remember it specifically, but there were a couple of specifics I remember distinctly, which were, I want to be known, I want to help people, and I want to give. And that's all. It didn't matter about title or income or status, or it was about who he be versus what he did.
Yeah.
In a way, and I never forgot that. It also reminds me of this platform in coach training. We talk about, if I'm remembering it, do, get, be. We have a tendency to do what we think we're supposed to do, so we can get what we think we're supposed to get, so we can be who we think we're supposed to be. But what if you switch that on its head, which is an ikigai practice?
Right.
What if I be who I truly am, connected to my core essence, so I can get what I need to get to be okay, and then I can do what I want to do. So if people come to my door and say, I'm having a career crisis, I got laid off. We had a lot of terminations and layoffs, lots of change over the past few years in particular. I always ask the question. We go straight to doing. We ask teens, so what's the big career going to be? How can a teen know?
Right.
At the age of a really good friend, her son wants to take what's it called? A leap year? What do we call it? A gap year.
Oh, gap
Yeah.
year.
Ridiculous. Gap year. And in this context, in this situation, I think it's fabulous. He says, I know I'm going to do something great. I just don't know what it is. I want to figure out who I am first. And I think it's magnificent.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great thing. It's one of the few things I think from the pandemic that's maybe going to have some lasting positive impact, as people are reevaluating that and taking that year off, because we saw taking a year off didn't and end the world. And so, yeah. Oh, I love that. I like that reverse. That's really cool, because like Richard Rohr talks about that in his book, the second half. He talks about where the whole first half we're trying to build the vessel, and then the second half we figure out what goes in it. And it's perfectly fine to, you gotta get your career, and you gotta get the wife, and you gotta get the dog, and you gotta get the car, right? All that. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just that's not what you're here for. That's like a normal process. And yet, what if we reversed it? And what if you found out who you are first and then started doing all that other? What difference? I can see a huge difference. Yeah.
Huge difference. And then the doing, you can figure out who you want to spend time with, where you want to spend your unique talents and gifts, where your contribution is the highest, where you light up. And then all of a sudden the options become clearer, more focused.
Right.
Yeah, it's a neat one.
Yeah. Yeah. When you have that, especially I think young. So I have someone I was mentoring recently, and they're starting to get a sense for what they really enjoy about their work, and what they had seen themselves as was like a salesman. And in reality, they were a college baseball player, and when they played college baseball, they were actually loved coaching. And when they've sailed, they love coaching. And when they right, so I've helped this person see that where their ikigai really is in helping others do that. Now they've built skills, and the skills are important, and they are really a really good salesperson, and the right kind of salesperson. I mean, not only just sell well and get the numbers, they're connecting people with what they need, and that's where they really get jazzed. But helping maximize other people's ability to do that is really where they get the most energy. And they were debating two different jobs, and it was very easy to pick one because one had far more opportunities to do that. The other was more about selling and running a sales team, but more about getting the numbers and that sort of thing. And so having that sense really helped guide them where they belong. And again, sales is where this individual has learned to express some of these things, but it's not, his ikigai isn't sales, right? He could have found a whole lot of other paths. That just happens to be where he's had some success and now has credibility and background in it, so he can get jobs like that.
So for those that are listening, I know we've touched on this a couple of times, but I really want to anchor it. So if I'm listening and I'm going, okay, I'm digging this concept of ikigai, of flow, of all of the things that we're talking about, whether it be organizationally or in our personal lives, like, where do I begin?
Where do you begin? Yeah.
Oh, David.
Obviously, I like to work with people. I do coaching. I do with the daily ikigai and things, write a number of things that they can use to start their own process. A lot of it's really about doing and experimenting and seeing what are you enjoying, and listening to yourself, and to, spending some time in self-reflection. I mean, that is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Right? I always say, if you can ask yourself questions, even if you have no idea why you were put on this earth, you can find your ikigai.
Yeah.
You just start with some good questions. And I usually share some questions to get people started and that kind of thing. But and one I love to ask, and that people seem to respond very well to. I don't have a dog any longer, but when I first got married, we bought a dog, which was the dumbest thing we ever did. But this crazy dog just kept us going. But this dog would chase a tennis ball like all day long. If I threw it, he'd go after it. If I threw it 1,000,000 times, he'd go after it 1,000,000 times and bring it back one more time. He just loved chasing that tennis ball. No matter how slobbery it got and impossible for me to get a hold of it, even, he would just do that all day long. And he was always disappointed when we'd stop. And I always ask people to think, what's your tennis ball? What is it that you would do? And and again, not on career. Think about the things, think about the times where you were just that jazzed. You were in your state of flow, right? And there are clues in all of that. I shared in the Daily Ikigai the other day, something that I hadn't even realized myself. But there were early signs of the love I have for storytelling and for writing and for conveying those stories, going back to, you know, my third grade. Can I tell that story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I always thought of myself as kind of a rule following guy, but as I've gotten older and I reflect more openly about my youth, I could do some things that were maybe less than rule following. So I was coming in, I went to this beautiful old Gothic elementary school with a tower, a bell tower and everything. And we were coming in from recess, and it was sort of the thing to jump up the stairs to see who could run and jump up the stairs. And no one had gotten to the fourth step yet. And I jumped and I got to the fourth step, and I'm like, and as I'm quietly celebrating this, my teacher yells, "David." And I thought, all right, I'm done. She's going to hit on me. And she came and put her arm around me and congratulated me. I had won this governor's writing contest. And it was, I had forgotten even that we had done it, but it was an assignment. Everybody had to do it in the entire state, and the governor sponsored it. He had been a prisoner of war in World War II and had escaped from the Japanese, and he wrote his story, and it was his book. And if you won this, you got a copy of the book and autographed, and there were anyway, it was kind of a big deal, but to me it was just an assignment. I had this assignment and I turned it in, and she gave it back to me. She says, "No, this isn't what the assignment is. You know, I want you to try it again." And over and over and over again, I kept turning this in, and finally, my grandmother was kind enough to tell me, tell your story, not the encyclopedia. In fact, the teacher even said, "Don't do the encyclopedia. I'm not looking for the encyclopedia. I'm looking for your story." And my grandmother helped me tell what turned out to be a pretty good story. But it was that thinking back on that and realizing that was a thing for me. And then I was in the second reading group. They had started to break us up into, first reading group was like the really bright kids. The second reading group's like the okay, and then goodness knows we don't want to be in the third reading group, right? But when the teacher announced to the class that I had won, one of the guys in the second reading group with me goes, "You won, and you're in the second reading group," like that was a miraculous thing, And honestly, the second reading group after that was different. We all looked at ourselves differently. Like, we were the second reading group, but he won the governor's award. That kid actually went on. He's a successful attorney in Indianapolis now, so he did okay for himself. I don't think he was too bad. But when I look back on that, I see those elements of telling a story in a way that mattered, doing something that inspired other people. And all of those are elements of what I enjoy today. And so when you spend time in reflection, or even just, doing things, and then what did you get from that? Those are all clues to helping you uncover your Ikigai.
Well, I'm dying to hear what the story was all about.
Oh. It was supposed to be about Indiana when we thought about Indiana, and my family had taken a trip. And this is back, early days before the interstate was complete and things like that. And so we went to Michigan, actually, to my great aunt who lived in Battle Creek, like where Kellogg's was and things like that. And it was our trip almost from the southern tip of Indiana all the way up to obviously the northern tip and then into Michigan. And it was all the things that, we stopped on roadsides and historic markers and ate lunch because they didn't have McDonald's at every rest stop back then and things like that. And so it was just my seeing the open flat prairie with corn and the farm fields and the experience of Indiana that was what they were looking for anyway. And then it was just my perception of the state and things. And I have no idea the quality or caliber. I guess it was good. It won, but I don't have any record of it or any copy of it anymore. I think after I was done with it, I was done with it. That was I had read it 4 times. So.
That's also a nice message, right? The teacher gave you the opportunity to redo it over and over again until such time that she felt that you did a good job and then thus winning. So
Yeah.
I love that story.
She's a very, very kind and understanding teacher too. I think she was very patient with me, and I share in the article that after she told me, she said she had to go to the principal and I think inform him or something like that. And so we were supposed to go on up from recess, and she goes, "And on your way up, walk." She had
Don't
definitely
do the
taught
fourth
me.
step.
Yeah, but I hit the fourth step. That's a big
You
deal.
did.
I don't think I could hit the fourth step today, but
yeah. So I think that brings us to a natural point. One of the things that we do before closing it out is with each guest that we have on, we ask them a question from the previous guest, not knowing who the current guest is. So as I mentioned at the top of our time together, our last episode was on grief. And we were joined by Christine Lang and Christine Mack Granger, both experts on the topic of grief. And we challenged them to ask you, our future guest, question. So are you game for this?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So Cindy asked, what brings you joy?
Wow, what brings me joy? I have to say, I look at joy as a bigger thing, right? A state as opposed to something like happiness. Happiness. My grandkids give me happiness, and my life, my faith and living it out and living out my Ikigai and having that foundation has, I think, put me at a point where I experience joy on I'll say a daily basis. That's kind of a baseline thing. Happiness comes and goes, and joy is that deeper satisfaction and feeling of contentment for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So thinking we have our guests lined up for in a couple of weeks, if we can put you on the spot, what question it can be anything at all, but what question might you have of our next guest?
Wow. How about we go with the tennis ball question?
Yes.
That's good. That's really good.
You can tell them about the dog. The dog's name was Nimrod, by the way, if that gives you any clue. Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Something tells me that your answer to the joy question too is also about the integration point you made earlier.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, which is lovely. I'm not going to forget that. That was very good. Huge thank you to you, David. There are lots of scribbles here, lots of wonderful tips, ideas, thoughts for individuals, for organizations, hunches. We could go on for hours. So many wonderful nuggets of wisdom, stories, things that we know you have to impart. We really hope people who are listening, watching, will tune into David. You can find David Marlow, the Ikigai guy, on LinkedIn, who posts literally daily, one of the most loyal, dedicated to the cause of writing, sharing wisdom and inspiration, and wholehearted. He's on there every single day, everyone. So please follow him there. And also that your daily Ikigai on Substack, apparently the most searched blog, which is superb. So congratulations on that. We both follow it, highly recommend it. Do stay tuned for episode 21. There are 2 brave and inspired guests. That's pretty much all we can say, and it's worth subscribing to listen to for fun and to pique curiosity. It might have something to do with living and leading into your purpose. So a bit of an extension of the conversation, we shall see. Over to you, Caroline.
Yeah, we just want to encourage you once again to subscribe to Pithy Musings. We're slowly but surely getting people to click the button. Click the button. If you'd like to share this episode, certainly do that. If you tag us in your shares, we appreciate that as well. If you want to find me, you can find me at caroline@talktalk.ca. If you would like to find Eva, she is at eva@livewithfervor.com. So as we finish it out, shall we say it in unison, Eva?
Until next time,
Stay pithy. Keep
and
musing.
keep musing.
It wasn't in unison, but that's okay. Thanks, everyone.